I appreciate your company this afternoon. First in the news, payroll fraud and other financial infractions continue to drain the state's coffers, with the latest Auditor-General's report revealing a staggering rise in losses from 14 million to 58 million cedis within just 1 year. While Parliament's Public Accounts Committee is demanding stricter measures, questions remain about why these recurring leakages persist year after year. We'll be speaking to the board chairman of YOCU, who is also the former Auditor-General, Daniel Domelevo, shortly. But first, here is the Deputy Minister for Finance, Thomas Ampemnyako, revealed that a staff at the Controller and Accountant General Office is currently under investigation for a related offence.
There was one that went viral recently about someone who complained that I think a teacher also name was taken off the payroll. Somebody assisted him to get it on, and the person was demanding a lot of money from him. Because he did not pay, they went ahead and removed his name from the payroll. We have taken serious view of this, and it is being investigated. Fortunately, Controller knows the person in the Controller office who activated, who deactivated, but a lot more information need to come out for us to know what really went on and for the appropriate punishment to be meted out. And so the Finance Minister takes serious views to some of these things, and he's asked that we have an in-depth investigation into it.
Now, Member of Parliament for Kpando and a member of the Public Accounts Committee, Sebastian Fred, there says improving the validation process is essential to deal with the menace.
At the core of it is dishonesty on the part of staff and duty bearers that were assigned responsibilities to be in charge of this activity. Like a case was cited where somebody, an able-bodied person, for 36 months, this person was receiving allowances pertaining to disability. And definitely, it would have been stated on the payroll the kind of allowances that he was being paid, including the one that relates to disability. But that person for 36 months took it.
How do we resolve this?
I think that stringent measures, procedures, controls need to be put in place to prevent such things from occurring. This whole issue of this animal called validation, how on earth can it be that we, in the age of computers, in the age of technology, we are unable to put in correct measures, correct procedure, correct, adequate measures, backed by technology that will ensure that if somebody is at post and that person, that human being is validated, it's one activity and that's it. So that issue of validation needs to be tackled, or it needs to be, handled once and for all, such that once we say we are validating somebody, the biometrics and everything that is required for you to know that Mr. A or Madam B is the person at post and therefore being paid from the state purse, that needs to be done and backed by technology.
Now, the Public Accounts Committee is pushing for stricter measures to help deal with increasing financial infractions captured in the Auditor-General's report. Now, we're joined by the board chairman of YOCU and former Auditor-General Daniel Domelevo on some of these developments and even more. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Now, first, the basis of the Public Accounts Committee hearing are usually hinged on the Auditor-General's reports, which you have authored a number of them. Let's begin with your general impressions on the work of the Public Accounts Committee over the years. What do you make of it?
Well, the Public Accounts Committee has been playing a very important role in public financial management, especially with respect to implementation of the recommendations of the Auditor-General over the years. However, if I'm supposed to mark them, I may put them around 40 or 50%. Because most of the work that they do is, to me, a waste of their own time and our time. That is to say, most of what they do is needless from my point of view. So as a former, when I was Auditor General, I started the disallowance and surcharge, if you remember,
right?
Because I thought the Auditor General has the mandate to nip it in the bud, said that those infractions do not go to Public Accounts Committee. And Article 187(7)(b) actually mandate the Auditor General so to hold people accountable, and even says that if you are surcharged and you are not happy with it, go to court. So if the Auditor General has been mindful of continuing the disallowance and surcharge, said that once you spend money wrongly, you will be held accountable. Remember, when you say surcharge, people don't understand it. If you go into the decision of the Supreme Court in Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General, the Supreme Court defined surcharge as the amount, collecting the amount which has been wrongfully spent plus a penalty on top. So you don't go collecting the 10,000 or the 20,000, no, plus a penalty. So if that has been done in the past, and the Public Accounts Committee is mindful of ensuring that the Auditor General does this to the letter, I think the impunity which in which we are today will not have gotten there.
So do I hear you say that instead the Public Accounts Committee should focus on the implementation or some of the things that the Auditor General would have recommended, not rather sit down and engage characters or stakeholders that were involved in the infractions?
Exactly. What I'm trying to say is that first, the Auditor General is supposed to do something. So it is the duty of the Public Accounts Committee to hold the Auditor General accountable first.
Okay.
To find out, have you also done your work? You are supposed to surcharge these amounts. Where are the surcharge certificates? Have you issued these surcharge certificates?
Right.
And remember, this is supported by a Supreme Court decision in Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General.
Yes.
So the Auditor General must be held accountable.
Right.
To do what is expected of him.
No.
Then the systems which allow these infractions are brought to the Public Accounts Committee, and the institutions are brought in to answer. What type of control measures are you putting in place to prevent the recurrence of this? It's not the individual infractions that Public Accounts Committee should be wasting their time on.
Let's look at how much is jumped for payroll fraud, has jumped from 14 million to 58 million cedis within a year. From your experience, what's driving the surge?
Because there are no consequences from his behavior. People have stolen the money and getting away with it over the years. So why will people not continue? If you follow the public accounts hearing, you will notice that the public accounts chairperson was even chastising an accountant who was holding somebody accountable by saying it is illegal. And I start to be corrected. I've combed the laws. I've not seen which law the chair was depending on. How about contract on the contract? I think there's somebody also on the line.
Well, unfortunately, maybe, but you can please proceed. That was just a little challenge.
Yes. The law that I have seen, I'm waiting to hear from the public accounts chair the law that she is using. The law that I have seen is the Public Financial Management Regulation 93. It allows deduction or recovery of overpayment. But in this particular case, if you had the exchange between she and the gentleman, she even said this is an illegal transaction. If we are recovering process of crime or illegality, and then you set it at 40%, which is not true. And people are trying to justify it by saying Accountant General has a 40% rule. They've forgotten I was the director of payroll. I implemented the payroll, the IPPD. And that rule, I participated in bringing it up because the banks were giving money to public servants so much that it takes away all their salary. So it's supposed to determine your level of credit that can be given to you.
A common theme that I'm hearing from your answers is implementation. I mean, beyond what you have suggested, if the public accounts was overseeing the work of the Auditor General, really, what other practical terms, what validation mechanisms or reforms should Ghana adopt to ensure at least a watertight payroll system?
First and foremost, the payroll system, the procedures and the processes must be reviewed. the Accountant General may have to come to the Public Accounts Committee and explain to us what happens such that this type of validation is being done. It is never accepted in public financial management that you approve your own expenditure. So you can't validate your own transaction. How come the system allows a validation? Because a very simple control. It is put the person you are going to validate staff number there and put your own staff number, you the validator. If the two are the same, the system should say that no, you can't validate this.
Right.
This is a very simple control. So the Accountant General may owes us an explanation. How kind of validation is this? Said that individuals are able to hide in their own room or wherever to validate their own record. The Auditor General also owes us explanation as to what percentage of these expenditures that he has disallowed and surcharged, how many surcharge certificates has he issued and recovered from this? And this border on theft, it is misappropriation of funds. Have they reported these cases to the police or the YOCO or to OSP? So that is the point I'm making, that as long as there are no consequences for abuse and stealing of public funds, it will escalate. I'm not surprised that it has moved from 15 to about 48 million.
Sure.
And it
Thank
will continue going.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Domelevo, for joining us today and bringing us some alternative measures to curb this menace. Now, away from the Auditor-General and the Public Accounts Committee, the NPP flag bearer in the 2024 election, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has officially filed his nomination to contest in the NPP's flag bearership race, declaring himself the most prepared candidate for the 2028 elections. Addressing supporters at the party's headquarters, Dr. Bawumia said he owes the party a duty to secure victory in 2028, addressing that this election represents the very soul of the party.
I am offering myself to be elected as flag bearer because I believe we owe a duty to this party to give her a choice to put forward the most prepared candidate for the 2028 election and the most prepared person to be president in 2029. In the last 16 years, I've had the privilege of joining each and every constituency at least 5 times to work hard on the ground and campaign and work for the MPP. Just like the thousands of you who may not have had all the money in the world to throw at the party, all my sweat, my reputation, my knowledge, and my person have been dedicated to working with you for the success of the party. As a result of this, there is no village or hamlet or city or town where Mahamudu Bawumia's face and name are not known. I owe this party a duty that if we are to win 2028, we ought not to start afresh from zero. Instead, we ought to build on the nearly 42% of valid votes and work across and work to cross the 50% mark in the next election. I have also had the distinct privilege of serving as Vice President and supporting the President and the government in our last administration with ideas that have significantly impacted the lives of millions of our people.
Well, my colleague Kenneth Jesse has been at the NPP headquarters all morning and will bring us what's happening since after he delivered that speech and filing his nomination. Kenneth, what's happening at the headquarters currently?
Well, the crowd is dispersing bit by bit after Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia delivered that speech after submitting his nomination forms. And of course, he's also called for unity within the party. He says that the party is not fighting within, but they should be fighting their opponent, that is the NDC. He's also been touting his achievements during his tenure as vice president, saying that he has been the most effective vice president in the country's history, talking about the introduction of policies like Go for Oil, mobile money interoperability, and a few others. And he was accompanied by a high-powered delegation, including former government officials and MPs and former MPs as well. I cited Kujo Ponkroma, who is the former Works and Housing Minister, George Mekuduka as well. I cited John Intim-Fojo, former Deputy Education Minister there, all here to support him. And then now that he's gone, we are expecting Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, who is the former Education Minister, to also come and submit his nomination form. So the crowd has reduced significantly. Most of them are leaving to their final destinations.
Right. Thank you so much, Kenneth. You want to stay with us when Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum as well goes to file his nomination. We shall bring you all of the excerpts that will happen at the NPP headquarters. Now, still on elections, it's just 5 days to the Akwatia by-election, and the two major political parties, NDC and NPP, have since been going at each other with allegations and counter-allegations of plans to rig the elections. But at the heart of all of this is an emergent question over the cost of the process and whether or not the extreme cases of loss of life is worth it. That's the concern from flag-bearer hopeful of the New Patriotic Party, Kwabena Ejapon. Speaking at PM Express last night, well, he says Ghana's by-elections are becoming quite expensive and needless and must be cancelled.
The amount of money, because I had gotten wind of the amount of money the police were requesting to go and police Akwatia. Do you know how much it is? Find out.
Oh, you tell me.
I will tell you. The amount of gear and the people, at the last count I had, it was going to be more than 3,000 troops.
I mean, definitely they are dealing with over 50,000 voters and 120 polling stations.
So what?
And they have precedent from Ablekuma North, and definitely they have to prepare.
Because I think that, you see, and especially now it's so unnecessary. It's a waste of our state funds. Look, the NDC has such a big majority. Whether they win it or lose it, it won't change anything. That's number one. So I thought that in this national mood of sobriety and togetherness, we could have said, okay, from now on, and I always believe in that. When we go to elections in 2020, when we went to elections in 2024, every party was given a mandate, yes, through a member of parliament, but for 4 years. If you hadn't passed, unfortunately, you'll be there for 4 years. So why can't we get the political party that is holding the seat to nominate a replacement and save us all the aggro? Now, when you have a by-election, everybody, all the top brass of the two parties and their so-called vigilantes and everybody's descending in that small, tight area. It's going to be a flashpoint. Somebody's going to do something and, why do we want to expose ourselves when the result won't change anything?
So how do you want us to have our by-elections if you don't?
There should not be any by-election.
So how do we replace the MPs?
Well, this is what he proposes as replacements for the by-election process.
Just get the party that has won the previous election to nominate to complete. This is a no-brainer. I mean, in Ghana, we are obsessed with constitutions and all that. Yes, it was made for man, for ourselves, and we've operated it for over 30 years. If there's something that we can change, why not? Why? The MPP decided, for some reasons, that they were not going to contest Tamale because of what happened. We all understand that. I would have thought the NDC would have returned the favor. They didn't. That's their choice. But I think going forward, we could have agreed a convention and not wasted police time, Electoral Commission's time, parties' time. Parties are now raising money for a seat that won't change anything. It won't change anything. And for me, it's a complete waste of everybody's time. I'm not interested in this.
Thankfully, former UN advisor on governance, Professor Bafo Ajmendua, has joined us via Zoom with some perspective on this. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on the news. Now, so the essence of democracy is really to allow, make processes even more democratic. But of course, at the heart of it is the financial burden. Is this proposal from Gbenyiri something you agree with?
And I think the core issue here revolves around representation. If we go by his suggestion, that is to say, allowing the incumbent party, that is to say, the party that won the constituency in the first place, to keep it for the 4 years, and if there is a need to fill a vacancy, that same party nominating and bringing somebody in. I think it's a very fair way to manage it, because the idea of representation will have been addressed by the fact that even though the original candidate elected by the people no longer exists, the party won it for 4 years. And I think there are some democracies that practice that. Then the issue of the cost, which is very real. Look, just that we do not discuss the cost of security in the country, and therefore we don't know how much we expend on deploying 1,000 police people, not to mention the army also being deployed. All this for about a week, just because we're going to cast elections. That may not add any value to our democratic process at all. Then thirdly, look at the emotional, psychological effect of by-elections. Because unfortunately, in our history, 32 years of this republic, almost every by-election results in violence, one form or the other. So you ask yourself, after all this, what value do we get? We don't. So I think it's proper, and I know some democracies that practice this. When a parliamentarian or a legislature passes away or becomes incapacitated, the party that won the seat is given the sole right for replacement, rather than going back to start afresh and create all this kind of unnecessary tension in the country.
So you absolutely agree with his suggestion. You want to give, if we don't go by this option, would you have a counter suggestion or proposal, or you think this is fair, ideal, democratic, and even less expensive?
I'll tell you, I proposed this idea some years back when I was actively working at the CDD. So for me, it's not a new idea, just that we haven't averted our minds to it. And if you look at the track record of by-elections in this country, almost every by-election has created a problem. So you ask yourself, what is the value? So what Kwabena Japan is proposing is sensible.
Right.
It's sensible. So I don't have any problem at all with that. We need to move on that. And now we know that we're having constitutional review process.
Right.
So this is the time that we can go and see if we can amend that portion to allow this kind of new proposal to hold.
Thank you so much, Prof, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news today. Now, political scientist and policy analyst Dr. Joshua Zato has taken a swipe at the police and security agencies over their handling of election-related violence. He argues that security operatives have often targeted opposition party supporters, citing incidents at Ayawaso, West Wuogon, and Ablikuma North as examples. These comments come in the wake of the NPP's decision to fully disclose police deployment plans for the Akwatia by-election.
Electoral violence happens in Ghana not because of the absence of the police. It happens in spite of the presence of police. So the presence of the police, even if you deploy 1 million police, might be necessary, but it's not sufficient to ensure safety and security during elections. Police might be necessary, but it's not sufficient to ensure that there's peaceful elections. In Ayawaso West, when the police was there, the security was there. They were there when Honorable Samjan was assaulted. They were there. So it's not that they were not there. It's not that it happened in a secluded place in Ayawaso West where, there was no police there, and some people went and cornered him somewhere and assaulted him. No, it happened when the police was there. The journalists that were beaten, they were beaten when the police was there. When Hawa Kumsum was knocked down when she fell, the police were standing just like literally there. It would take them less than 3 steps to go into rescue. They didn't go to her rescue. That's not true. When the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC guy was, they chased him. We saw him running, and we saw a marauding group of thugs following him. There was no single police officer also running, following him to save him. We saw the guy run, he fell, they started beating him, the police was standing just there, where he was lying there, crying and bleeding.
away from by-elections, fresh controversy is erupting over findings of the Ridge Hospital alleged assault investigative report, which established no evidence of physical assault on the victim. Chocho Bote, the 7-member committee tasked to investigate the matter on Wednesday, presented its final report to the Health Minister, Kabinamita Kando, which contradicts some allegations of the nurse in question. My colleague James Aveji will bring us updates or excerpts of that statement or that report cited by Joy News. James, what does the report contain?
Well, MFI, the key issue of controversy in that report is one of the terms of reference of the committee to establish as to whether or not there has been an assault as alleged by the victim. And per the committee's report, it says that although there is a video evidence of a verbal altercation between the accused person, Ralph, and the nurse, they are yet to receive any video evidence or witness account of the alleged physical altercation or attack on this particular nurse. They said regardless, the nurse in question the next day reported to the hospital sick and was treated, and her report is that she sustained some injuries on the left hand and shoulder. But the committee said per the medical report that they received from the hospital, it did not indicate any evidence of fracture to her left wrist or dislocation of her right shoulder joint, as she has alleged. Now, another issue is to also find out whether there has been delay in attending to the victim at the hospital. The committee report says there is no delay in attending to the patient with suspected head injury, who was the reason behind the agitation by Ralph and the motorbike riders. However, it was found out that all the diagnostics imaging equipment, including X-ray, CT scans, MRI, and others, were faulty and non-functioning. And so all images requested at the emergency department ought to be done outside of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. And this has been a contributing factor to the delay and disposition from the initiation. And so it raises another question as to how the committee on one hand says there's no delay, and then on the other hand said the fact that they had to do some of this examination outside the hospital caused some form of delay. And so those are the key findings. The recommendations are that the government takes steps to retool the Ridge Hospital as well as other hospitals, and then beef up security at some of these hospitals to forestall this moving forward.
Right. James, stay with me, because the public relations officer for the nurses at Ridge, Sarah Dankwa, has, however, questioned the findings of the investigation, alleging the committee failed to hear from them and also raising fresh allegations against the accused person, Ralph St. Williams. What are the concerns exactly that she's been raising?
Yes, so the nurse in question, speaking on GH1 TV, indicated that she has a video in her possession of the gentleman in question assaulting a pregnant woman in the face, and that he hit the woman in the face, and that the committee failed to invite people like her to tender in that evidence, for which reason she said she questions the report and also claims that she has that evidence, and that if the committee or any member of the public, especially the media house she was speaking with, requested, she will make it available. And so they are not more or less questioning the outcome of the report. What is left now is for the ministry to indicate whether, or the committee to indicate what they will do moving forward with this fresh allegation and this fresh piece of information that is coming out from the nurses through their PRO, MFA.
Well, interesting. Thank you so much, James Aveji, for that update. Now, the era of the popular takeaway park may soon be over as the government takes steps to phase out styrofoam in the country. The move follows concerns over the filth it leaves in the environment and the choking of gutters. Now, broader checks have already been mounted while intensive stakeholder engagements continue. My colleague Masola Kolobutu has been speaking with the chief executive of the Environmental Protection Agency and brings us this report.
Styrofoam packs, popularly known as takeaways, have long been a common choice for food packaging across the country. but amid growing concerns over their environmental impact, the government is now taking a firm stance against their use. The move follows a directive from the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, who in early June 2025 called for actions to phase out the use of styrofoam in the country. Speaking at the inauguration of the Environmental Protection Agency and the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission's board, the Chief Executive Officer of EPA, Professor Amma Brown Kluche, told Joy News that the agency is already engaging key stakeholders to facilitate the ban of the use of styrofoams.
We have started engaging stakeholders, the Ghanaian public who use the styrofoams, to start looking for alternatives to the styrofoams. So our next is to issue official letters and do media engagement as well on it. For now, what we are doing is engaging those stakeholders. So our next step is issuing official notices to all Ghanaians on that, and then we see to the ban. We believe that though the President has stated it, we need to engage stakeholders in the disuse of it before we go on the complete ban.
She further noted that inspection offices have been established at various border points as part of efforts to prevent the importation of styrofoams into the country.
We've set up offices at the port of entry into Ghana. So currently we have a physical space at Tema Port, which is the main entry, and then we'll have other spaces at the other port of entry, the landed port, Aplao, Paga, Elubo, all these areas. We are going to have physical presence there so that we monitor closely item that comes in.
The EPA says it remains committed to enforcing policies that protect the environment. Reporting for Joy News, Maxwell Aklobotu, Accra.
As still in Accra, assemblies across Accra have been thrown into what officials describe as all-out war on filth, with directive from the Greater Accra Regional Minister to dredge choked drains, fumigate communities, and tighten supervision of waste contractors. Speaking ahead of the Regional Minister's engagement with the media, the Ghana Central MC Emmanuel Alote said the push is part of fresh measures to restore sanity in the capital, where poor sanitation and dysfunctional streetlights continue to fuel insecurity and health risk. He insisted that while his municipality has already rolled out interventions under the sanitation improvement program, including the lifting of refuse containers and the cancellation of non-performing waste collector contract, assemblies will still need additional resources and direction to sustain their momentum. My colleague Collins Frimpong is there and will bring us update. Let's go to the Greater Accra Regional Coordinating Council now. Collins, what's the update? Please unmute. Collins, kindly unmute. Once I get my colleague to unmute and update that the Greater Accra Regional Minister some months ago promised that she's going to make sure that all street lights in Accra would be functional. Let's get an update on that. Collins, if you can hear me, tell us more about the street light situation.
So the regional minister is done with her engagement. This time, as I'm speaking with you, currently the MMDAs in the Greater Accra region are currently engaging the minister and also presenting their reports on how so far their work has been ongoing. On the issue of street light, the regional minister has given all MMDAs 2 weeks to fix street light within the district or municipality. The reason is that the Greater Accra Regional Minister has been able to secure 3,000 street lights, and each MMD are going to have 100 each of them. And with the 100, she believes that they will be able to fix the street light issues in the area.
Unfortunately, the network is not very kind to us this afternoon, but we'll bring you more of this in our subsequent bulletins. And away from that, the Member of Parliament for Wild West, Peter Lonchene Tobu, has paid a courtesy call on chiefs in Tuna, Kalba and Saula in the Saula Tuna Kalba district of the Savannah region as part of efforts to help restore peace in Gbenyiri and surrounding communities. The MP, who was accompanied by the Dagaba chief and elders based in the Savannah region, explained that his visit to the conflict-prone areas were not just in the capital in the capacity as Deputy Chairman for Defense and Interior Committee, but rather as a neighbor and natural mediator for peace. He appealed to the chiefs as well that and all factions involved in the conflict to cease fire.
So I found it necessary to join my brothers from the other districts who are just right standing behind me. And we need to make some moves. So as we stand, we are going to visit Tunaura, pay a courtesy call on him, take some pieces of advice, golden nuggets, of course, and we'll move to console our brother, the Kalbaura. I know everybody living within the Kalba chiefdom are sons and daughters of Kalbaura. If he loses one soul, it's painful. And we need to go and so console him. From there, we are going to move to Solaura. And we'll do what is necessary. But all we are saying is that let there be peace. All we are saying is that let's reflect on history and ensure that our peaceful coexistence can be reactivated once again. We don't need this. Our enemy is poverty. Our enemy is deprivation. Our enemy is lack of development. I'm sure if you travel from Accra to Tuna, as I stand here and you pass through the road, you will appreciate the fact that the enemy is not one of your brothers. Your enemy is not one of your sisters. Your enemy is to ensure that this place develops.
Another Tuna Palace, the chief of Tuna, Safo Amantana, welcomed the MP's intervention and assured him of his commitment to ensuring peace returns to Tuna and his enclave. He further appealed to all parties in the conflict to embrace peace and lay down their weapons.
This fight, I emphasize, is needless, completely needless. If you take our situation, our poverty situation, if you consider it, you will never fight anybody. Why should we fight? And like I said, which I'll repeat, let's give what is Caesar to Caesar and what is the Lord's the Lord. And let everybody be in his or her lane so that there will be no foul play. Even in boxing, there's foul in boxing. Let us stay at peace. I appeal to everybody here in this constituency, and particularly in my town here and environment, that no fights, peace, let's love one another. Let's grow, let's develop as a people so that our health, our roads, our schools, even what we eat will improve.
You're watching news today. Please stay for some business update.
Welcome back to Business here on Joy News today. My name is Winston Taki, and as our first business story, the board chairman of MTN Ghana Foundation, Professor Franklin Menu, has appealed to government to strengthen its economic empowerment policies to create jobs for youth in the rural areas. He revealed that most state policies aimed at job creation are not properly targeted and are not unsustainable in due time. There is more in this report. The MTN Ghana Foundation was established in 2007 as a single-purpose vehicle to drive all MTN's corporate social responsibility initiatives in the country. The foundation currently has 3 focus areas: health, education, and economic empowerment. Reacting to a question at a Bryce conversation organized by MTN Ghana, board chairman of the foundation, Professor Franklin Menu, advocated a collaboration between the private and public sector authorities to support small and medium enterprises.
It's the mindset of our leadership. For the past 40 years, every government that comes, what's the first thing you hear them saying? We want foreign investment. Then they get on the road show. They're going to bring foreign investment. Why aren't we encouraging our own people? Why are we giving incentives primarily to big companies that are coming from outside who don't hire a whole lot of people? And then we've not been able to bring in the informal sector. So you find that there are a lot of micro enterprises who are not captured, and they are basically struggling to survive. And so we need to really put in the systems to help these micro enterprises. Because they, probably in terms of employment numbers, are much higher than our so-called big companies.
The main aim of the foundation is to have a broad community impacting and supporting national and international development priorities. It facilitates partnership and sharing of resources to achieve mutual objectives. Despite the numerous work undertaken by the foundation in youth empowerment, Professor Menu called for more investment in technology to groom more trainers in the area.
I think the government has a project, is it 500,000 youth to learn coding?
Yes, 1 million.
1 million. Who's going to teach the 1 million people how to code? How many people in Ghana know how to teach coding? Seriously, how many people? So how long is it going to take to train the 1 million? Okay, so
across the country.
So when you talk about technology, I always say look at the people dimension also. How are you going to involve people to do all of this technology? And remember, technology costs money.
Professor Franklin Menu, who is an academia, disclosed the MTN Heroes of Change, which identifies individuals doing extraordinary things to serve society, is perhaps the most impactful in its assessment of the foundation's work over the years. Speakers at the Fidelity Bank Sustainability Conference have called for increased awareness in funding opportunities for small businesses in Ghana's green economy. Speaking to Joy Business, Managing Director for Fidelity Bank Ghana, Julian Upuni, stated that building effective partnership with ecosystem players will improve the rate of access to green finance and support the growth of a green economy. There is more in this report.
The third edition of the Fidelity Bank Sustainability Conference aims to reaffirm the bank's commitment to fostering a climate-resilient economy. The conference gathered experts from across varied sectors to explore how Ghana can advance its climate finance agenda through innovations. Speaking to Joy Business at the event, Managing Director for the bank, Julian Upuni, underscored the need for strategic partnerships between financial institutions and business development groups to enable SMEs tap into funding for green projects.
What we find is that in addition to access to finance, is capacity building for SMEs, which is sometimes what stops them from being effectively de-risked. Additionally, in this space, a lot of the areas are probably haven't been tapped into properly, and there's no ongoing or existent proven track record of success and banks' understanding of those areas. So that's why we believe in working in partnerships. The banks, and from where we sit as Fidelity, we know how we can assess a business, the profitability, etc. But in some of these areas, it's important that we work with other partners who understand the ecosystem a lot better.
Mr. Opuni was optimistic that Fidelity Bank will lead the charge in sustainable banking in the short to medium term, offering competitive products and ensuring green-led practices.
We are, intrinsically a domestic bank, and we like to be at the forefront of things that matters to the ecosystem in which we operate. And so we don't want to be outside of this conversation. So in 5-10 years, I'd want it to be almost Fidelity's mentioned when we talk about sustainable banking, and we become, not just for the regulator, but for all Ghanaians, almost like a yardstick to measure how well it can be done.
A panelist at the conference and head of risk and regulations at the National Banking College, Dr. Francis Mensah Sasiaku, stated the Ghana Banking College's resolve to deepen education on the sector.
We also work in terms of collaboration, where you see clearly that the challenge of bankers ensures that sustainability training is one of the key pillars for you to become a chartered banker.
We have more business update for you at 1 p.m. on the marketplace. Over to Emifa for the rest of the bulletin.
Thank you, Wisdom Taki. Now, before we wrap up, we'll also bring you showbiz, but cocoa may be Ghana's economic lifeline, but its processing remains one of the most energy-hungry stages of the value chain. Producing a single kilogram of chocolate generates an alarming 13.7 kilogram of CO2 emissions at the Climate Talks Dialogue held yesterday at Fair Afrique Ghana. Experts urged cocoa processors and farmers to embrace energy efficiency and waste-to-energy practices that will not only protect the environment, but also secure Ghana's global competitiveness. There's more in this report.
Ghana's cocoa sector must go green and fast. This was revealed at the Climate Talks Dialogue, where the Managing Director of Fairafric, Michael Mamonham, urged regulators and processors to ditch the culture of fault-finding and embrace collaboration, warning that only shared responsibility can drive real accountability and sustainable waste solution in cocoa processing.
There indeed isn't a clear demonstration of support for compliance, and rather it is a situation of having to find faults. The cost of implementation of these innovative waste management and energy efficiency models must be truly just on the books of the processor. And so you're asking yourself, because at the end of the day, the key objective of every business is also to make. We do not take it lightly when we partner regulators and other support groups like Rebuild, for example, who are providing funds for us to buy cocoa from cooperatives that are inculcating dynamic agroforestry practices.
On her part, Acting Director of the Ghana National Cleaner Production Center, Letitia Abrakom-Yaba, stressed the urgency for processors to research, invest, and commercialize waste-to-energy solutions.
Our shells, most of the companies are using them to fire their boilers, their furnaces, but the residue that comes from it is ash. Sorry, I'm going to the waste management end, but it also provides an opportunity. That ash contains a lot of potassium that can also serve as fertilizer. So there should be research, and then there should be investment, and then let's see how we can commercialize these outputs from our processes for our industry.
The Acting Director General of Monitoring and Evaluation at Cocoa Board outlined Waste to Wealth initiative, including recycling cocoa husk and ponds as practical ways to sustain farmers' livelihood, especially for those whose income are cut short by diseased trees.
However, the pod itself can go through the potash, can be turned into potash, which is also used as animal feed, can also be used as fertilizers, livestock fertilizers, and can also be turned into soap usage, which we consider as a livelihood, additional livelihood for the cocoa farmer.
The future for green cocoa processing is a gradual stage, but today's dialogue makes clear that Ghana must start now through collaboration, innovation and investment to secure both the environment and the competitiveness of its cocoa industry.